Hold on to your butts, folks, because this one's a wild ride. We're about to delve into one of the most chilling and perplexing crime sprees in American history. We're diving deep into the twisted mind of Joseph James DeAngelo, better known as the Golden State Killer. This man, who seemed ordinary on the outside, harbored a darkness that would terrorize an entire state. This dude terrorized California for over a decade, leaving a trail of fear and heartbreak in his wake. From the quiet suburbs of Sacramento to the bustling streets of Los Angeles, no one was safe from his reign of terror. Imagine living in the 1970s and 80s, doors unlocked, windows open, not a care in the world. It was a time of innocence, where communities felt safe and secure. Then, bam! This creep crawls in and turns your life upside down. The sense of security shattered in an instant, replaced by a pervasive fear that gripped entire neighborhoods. DeAngelo was like a boogeyman, but real, hiding in plain sight. He would stalk his victims, learning their routines, and then strike when they least expected it. He preyed on families, couples, and individuals. No one was immune to his terror. He would break into homes, often while the occupants were sleeping, and commit unspeakable acts. He was a rapist, a burglar, and a cold-blooded murderer. His crimes were heinous, leaving a lasting impact on the victims and their families. For years, he was a ghost, vanishing into thin air after each attack. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, he always seemed to be one step ahead. But you know what they say: you can run, but you can't hide. The relentless pursuit of justice never wavered, and the determination of investigators would eventually pay off. Finally, in 2018, after decades of dead ends, investigators got their break. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: advancements in DNA technology. DNA evidence, the ultimate truth serum, linked DeAngelo to the crimes. It was a monumental moment in forensic science, proving that even the most elusive criminals could be caught. Turns out, this sick puppy had been living a normal life, a family man, even a cop at one point. The revelation was shocking, as it showed how he had managed to blend into society while committing such horrific acts. Talk about a plot twist. The community was stunned, and the nation watched in disbelief as the details of his double life emerged. This is the story of how the Golden State Killer was hunted, haunted by his past, and ultimately brought to justice. It's a tale of perseverance, of never giving up, and of the incredible advancements in technology that made it all possible. Get ready, because this one's a real head-scratcher. As we unravel the mystery, we'll explore the meticulous work of the investigators, the breakthroughs in forensic science, and the impact on the victims and their families. This is a story that will leave you questioning the very nature of evil and the lengths to which some will go to hide their true selves. DeAngelo's reign of terror began in the mid-70s, not in some dark alley, but in the quiet suburbs of Visalia, California. These were neighborhoods where families felt safe, where children played in the streets until dusk, and where the biggest worry was what to have for dinner. But all that changed when DeAngelo, then known as the Visalia Ransacker, started his spree. He was known then as the Visalia Ransacker, breaking into homes, stealing trinkets, and freaking people out. He didn't just take valuables, he took peace of mind. Imagine coming home to find your personal space violated, your belongings scattered, and knowing someone had been there, watching you, learning your routines. But this was just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. The ransacker's activities were a prelude to something far more sinister. His petty thefts and break-ins were merely practice runs, honing his skills for the horrors he would later unleash. He escalated to stalking couples, peeping through windows, leaving creepy calling cards. These weren't just random acts. They were calculated moves designed to instill fear and assert control. He wanted his victims to know he was watching, that he could strike at any moment. Then, in 1975, he claimed his first victim, a college professor trying to protect his daughter from this sicko. The professor's bravery cost him his life, and the community was left reeling. This was no longer just a series of break-ins. It was a deadly game with real, tragic consequences. The ransacker was officially open for business, and business was about to boom. The police were on high alert, but DeAngelo was always one step ahead, evading capture and leaving a trail of fear in his wake. By 1976, DeAngelo, now a cop in Auburn, decided to share his, talents with the Sacramento area. His move to law enforcement was the ultimate irony, a predator hiding in plain sight, using his position to further his own twisted agenda. He became the East Area rapist, creeping into homes, tying up husbands or boyfriends, and assaulting women while they watched. His methods were brutal, his attacks meticulously planned. He knew how to manipulate, how to instill terror, and he thrived on the power he held over his victims. Talk about adding insult to injury. The emotional scars he left were as deep as the physical ones, and the communities he terrorized would never be the same. DeAngelo's reign of terror was far from over, and the worst was yet to come. By the late 70s, DeAngelo must have gotten bored of Sacramento because he shifted his operation south. He became the original Night Stalker, targeting couples in their homes, usually while they slept. Imagine waking up to that nightmare. He was brutal and methodical, binding, torturing, and killing his victims with chilling precision. He terrorized Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Orange County, leaving a trail of bodies and shattered lives. The Golden State was living up to its new, terrifying name. Section 4. Method in the Madness, the Killer's Calling Card. Now, this is where it gets really creepy. We're diving into the twisted mind of a killer who left a chilling mark on every crime scene. DeAngelo didn't just randomly attack people. Each move was calculated, each victim carefully chosen. He was a planner, a stalker, a master manipulator. He'd spend days, sometimes weeks, observing his targets. He'd case neighborhoods, learn his victims' routines, even cut their phone lines. Talk about being thorough. Imagine the fear of knowing someone had been watching you, learning your every move. He usually wore a ski mask, sometimes a flashlight strapped to his head, like some demented miner. This wasn't just to hide his identity, it was to instill terror. He'd bring his own bindings, often using shoelaces or cords, meticulously prepared for his heinous acts. And sometimes, he'd even eat their food or take souvenirs. It was as if he wanted to leave a personal touch, a reminder of his presence. The dude was cold, man, ice cold. His eyes, devoid of any emotion, were like windows to a soulless void. But here's the kicker. Sometimes he'd whisper threats to his victims, promising to hurt them or their families if they talked. Imagine the psychological torment, the constant fear. He'd even call them after the attacks, just to rub salt in the wound. These weren't just random calls, they were calculated moves to keep his victims in perpetual fear. He'd taunt them, reminding them of the horror they endured, making sure they knew he could strike again at any moment. This guy was playing mind games and winning. Every move was like a piece on a chessboard, strategically placed to ensure his dominance and control over his victims' lives. Section 5. Haunted Lives, the victims of the Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer didn't just take lives, he destroyed them. He left behind a trail of broken families, shattered dreams, and lifelong trauma. Imagine being a child, waking up to find your parents murdered, or a woman, living with the memory of being violated in her own home. It's the kind of stuff nightmares are made of. Some victims moved away, unable to escape the memories. Others became recluses, afraid to leave their homes. They lived in fear, haunted by the knowledge that the man who shattered their lives was still out there, somewhere free.